Could Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker be one of the biggest draft values this year? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Kate Magdziuk. Check her out on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, let's just jump right into it. Today, we're talking about Hendon Hooker, quarterback from Tennessee. Do you think he has a chance to be one of the bigger values in your dynasty leagues?
Here's the thing. If Hendon Hooker hits, let's start from the beginning. Quarterback out of Tennessee, looked really, really fantastic in his 2022 season. Second year senior, it transferred in from Virginia Tech, had 2 seasons in Tennessee's offense. And he might have been a candidate for the Heisman Trophy had it not been for a season-ending torn ACL. It was super unfortunate. But despite the stats being great, despite him looking really promising, there are a lot of things that hold me back a bit in terms of my hype for Hendon Hooker. First of all, Marcus, it's got to be the age. I want to start there because that in and of itself hasn't been a great track record, right? He turned 25 years old this past January. And we know the track record, generally speaking, for these guys isn't fantastic, right? We had, he was in college for 5 years. And in his 2022 season, he's basically a grown man amongst boys, right?
Yep.
He should be outplaying these guys. He should be outplaying 18 to 20-year-olds with his experience in the game. So tell us a little bit about the history of older quarterbacks drafted and how that usually translates to the NFL level.
Not great. It's not very good. So I've got a list pulled together by Pro Football Reference of every quarterback drafted since 2010 that was 24 or older. Remember, Hendon Hooker's 25, but here's the list. You tell me, Kate, how many of these players have turned out in the NFL? TJ Yates, Tyler Wilson, Clayton Thorson, Ryan Tannehill, Ricky Stanzi, Tom Savage, Tony Pike, your guy Kenny Pickett, Bryce Petty, Trace McSorley, Colt McCoy, Jake Luton, Landry Jones, Chandler Harnish, Will Greer, Garrett Grayson, Ryan Finley, Danny Etling, Brandon Daughtry, BJ Daniels, Kirk Cousins, Sean Canfield, Brandon Allen, Skylar Thompson, Brad Sorensen, Chris Oladokin. I believe the Steelers took in the 7th round last year, already out of the league, and Brandon Whedon. So of that list, we've got 2 quarterbacks, right? Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins, neither of which have really ever been top 7 or 8 dynasty quarterbacks, right?
No, and so that's the one thing, right? We can't change the age. But the other part that we need to talk about is that, again, as I previously alluded, he's 25 years old and he's got this torn ACL. So he's been rehabbing. There's relatively good news. It seems like he's going to be on track to be ready for week 1 of the NFL season. Medicals at the NFL Combine seemed generally positive, but not only are you talking about this guy that would be a huge outlier from a perspective of, translating to the NFL level at that age, that's one knock, but you also have a rookie quarterback who's probably going to miss a lot of really valuable reps in whatever offense that he's drafted into. So I wanted to get those out of the way for the concern. How much does the torn ACL impact your evaluation of him?
Not a ton. I mean, it's a little bit. Obviously, you can't just ignore it. But I don't think he was somebody who was going to come in and start as a rookie anyways. My issue with Hendon Hooker is the stats are amazing, right? They're fantastic. But it's still, I don't know. I don't love what I saw on tape. Just for example, the these are numbers via Pro Football Focus. The no play action grade, 59th percentile. The clean pocket grade, 73rd percentile. Standard drop back grade, 73rd percentile. First and second down grade, 76th percentile. While those are all above average, it's not like those are elite numbers. And if you're taking a quarterback who's already 25 that has this knee injury, I want him to walk on water, essentially, right? Like I want him to be this absolutely dynamic player. And while I think Hendon Hooker's really good, I'm not sure he's dynamic.
Here's the thing about it, like it just from like it, there's just the overall kind of issue, and like I'm gonna very broadly compare his situation to that of like a Bryce Young, right? Like Bryce Young is this impeccable prospect who's got this less than ideal frame, less than ideal height, but you overlook that because of everything else he shows on the football field. Like that is a player that is easy to, overlook that downfall, even if it is, even if him overcoming that frame would be a historic feat, much like we had faith in Devonta Smith, right? Like you think, okay, this prospect really does walk on water. There's so much else that like every other box is checked to perfection. That's not the case with Hendon Hooker. And I think just right out of the gate, like there's lots of other things that we can talk about. I think he's got, nice tools. He's got just a nice build.
I would say they're all above average tools, but I don't think there's any elite tools there. Do you think there are?
No. And and again, that's what holds you back from being able to overlook, the age, overlook the torn ACL, the reps he's going to miss. Like he's got size, he's got, a nice resume, but it's not anything that just makes me over the moon. So like if I'm just from an NFL perspective, if I'm an NFL team and I see the opportunity to draft Hendon Hooker as a backup for my team, that would be the ideal situation. But Marcus, we're not looking at him as a potential league backup. Like we're starting to see him climb into some mock drafts up into the first round,
which is bonkers. I don't get it. I want to ask you about one of the things that we're seeing a lot right now is people comparing him to Jalen Hurts, right? Because he's got very similar numbers coming out of Oklahoma. He's maybe doesn't have elite tools, but he is a good enough runner. He can throw the ball down the field. Could he develop into a Jalen Hurts in the NFL? Let's talk about potential landing spots next. This episode is brought to you by Built Bar. The Built March Madness bracket is here, and we all have our favorite Built Bars. I actually ordered 3 boxes of the cookie dough chunk yesterday. Absolutely favorite. Now it's your time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote for your favorites. Again, I'm going to be voting for the cookie dough. And if you want to support your favorite sports team, then you're going to be voting for that bar too. Support your team, support your bar or puff. And when you vote for your favorite bar or puff, you'll be entered into a drawing where 50 lucky Locked On listeners will get a free box of Built. Not only that, but one Locked On fan will win a 12-month subscription to Built to have the absolute best Built bars or puffs delivered straight to your door every single month. You've got to try Built Bar. They're absolutely fantastic. Best protein bar on the market right now. Seriously, they're so amazing. You're not even going to know that they're good for you. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar. You absolutely can't beat that. Plus, covered in 100% real chocolate. Run to builtmarchmadness.com right now to vote for your favorite bar or puff and pick up a box while you're there. You can vote every day in March, so hop on and support your pick. All right, Kate, let's talk landing spots. You mentioned you've seen a couple of mock drafts with Hendon Hooker in the first round. I think that's asinine, but where would you like to see him land to potentially give him the most potential dynasty value?
Oh, Marcus, this is really hard. So, like looking at Hendon Hooker as a prospect, right? Like a big problem with evaluating him and where he might find success at the NFL level is because of where he comes from, right? The Tennessee Volunteers, they run lots of go routes. Like it's not a very realistic system when you're talking about like what we see in today's modern NFL. Sure, we see more pass heavy schemes, but like this is just all guys running go routes. One of them has to be wide open and he rolls with it, right? Like how does that translate to the NFL? I don't like, where does it translate? I really don't know. I think the best opportunity for him in terms of translation might be, one of these offenses that, do lots of zones, spread guys out across the field in hopes that, maybe that generates enough separation that things roll smoothly. But I don't have a great feel for where it is.
I got 3 different landing spots and all 3 of them at different points in the draft, but I want your thoughts. Let's start with the one that I've seen the most, which is Hendon Hooker to the Minnesota Vikings at the end of the first round, which again, I think that's way too high. But the reasoning there would be Kirk Cousins is in the final year of his deal. You could draft Hendon Hooker, let him sit for a year, let him get healthy, and then in 2024, hand the reins over to him on an offense that's already pretty talented.
Okay.
Are you in or out?
I don't love it.
I don't love it either. It's not my favorite fit.
No, I just think like this is, and also, I mean, the Minnesota Vikings are in kind of a weird spot anyway. Like, playoff team, but like have some departures, like rumors that they might be trading Dalvin Cook. Like, what phase of their franchise are they in? I don't know, but again, it's really hard to imagine that Hendon Hooker is going to be your franchise guy. But I mean, let's say maybe the Vikings come out and, I don't know.
I think
think they have.
I think the reasoning would be behind the pick is, well, hey, if you draft him in round 1, you get the 5th-year option. It gives you a little bit more time here. And then on top of that, I think Minnesota believes that they're going to be a playoff caliber team again next year. So if you're going to be drafting 22, 23, 24, you're just not going to have a shot at one of the top quarterbacks. So this is a good way to continue to compete now, draft a guy, have him sit for a year, and then we'll see what it looks like in 2024. Again, not my favorite spot, but it's certainly an option. The next one, Kate, I think you might like a little bit more. Now, everybody's penciling in the Colts to draft a quarterback at number 4. But what if 3 quarterbacks go before them? What if it's CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and they just don't love Will Levis? What if they wait until round 2, you draft Hendon Hooker, and you have him sit for half a year? Remember, they did sign Gardner Minshew. And you pair him with Shane Steichen, who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, that obviously knows how to develop a quarterback and to put him in an advantageous situation. Would you like Hendon Hooker to the Colts in round 2?
I would. I think I'd like for them to maybe make some more investment in their receiving core. But I like that idea a little bit better. There is one team that's like just behind the Colts there in the second round that I'm kind of curious about. Marcus, let's talk about the Rams at pick 36. They're kind of in an interesting position here. Matthew Stafford, his 2022 season ended prematurely. There was rumors that maybe he'd consider retirement. He's come out to say that's not the case for 2023, but there were real concerns based on like the health situation, right? Like he had a
Mhm.
couple of scares this year.
Mhm.
Um, there were just a lot of question marks there, and Baker Mayfield, I think, filled the gap nicely, but
Mhm.
this is a team that's going to need to start planning for what is beyond Matthew Stafford. They won their Super Bowl with him. How long can they extend this run? I don't know, but I do think if he's going to be healthy in 2023, that gives them a year. Again, let Hendon Hooker officially kind of round out his rehab there and really come into the season as strong and physically healthy as possible. I think Sean McVay, great offensive mind to be learning from. Matthew Stafford, a great quarterback to be playing behind. They've got Cooper Kupp. Like they have a lot of nice assets within this team. And I do think that Sean McVay is a creative enough quarterback that even if you can't mimic that kind of offensive scheme that you have in Tennessee, I think Sean McVay can create something spicy enough that
Sure.
maybe we're gonna to generate some plays that aren't going to
Yep.
be as challenging for Hooker to navigate.
I think you're right. That would be a great fit for Hendon Hooker. I don't know if it's a great fit for the Rams because that would be their first pick, and I kind of think that team is like quietly quitting right now. They're trying to get ready for Caleb Williams in next year's draft. So I just don't know if they want to invest a second round pick on a team that's maybe trying to go winless this year. I won't
We've
surprise.
we've seen though that the Rams make some crazy
You're telling
decisions.
me.
Like they've been without first round picks. I thought Tutu Atwell was maybe one of their most surprising picks ever
Yes.
in the second round. Like this team does make surprising picks that don't always make sense to the rest of us. But again, even if you're going with Caleb Williams and that's sort of your plan, if you can get Hendon Hooker, he can be that backup, and
Sure.
you get to see like genuinely uh what he has to offer without that sort of pressure. And I don't think Hendon Hooker is a QB1 in this league, but perhaps I'm wrong.
Yep.
And if there is going to be a coach to pull it out of him, I think it could be Sean McVay.
I've got one more landing spot that I think you're actually going to like this one. This team has multiple picks in round 1 and round 2, and I don't know if they have a long-term quarterback option on their roster. What about the Detroit Lions? The Lions, I don't think are going to draft a quarterback in the first round of this year's class because they do pick at 6 and 18. I think they're likely to use those picks to address their defense, but they pick at 48 and 55. What if they spent the 48th pick on Hendon Hooker and like, you know what? We've got Jared Goff under contract this year. We don't need Hendon Hooker to play. He can be our backup or our third string quarterback. And let's just reevaluate where we are after the 2024 season. This team is loaded on the offensive line. They've got playmakers galore. They've got Jamison Williams, who should be healthy this year, that can stretch the field. I love Ben Johnson working with Hendon Hooker. I think that is a spot where if he gets drafted by the Lions in the second round, I would be willing to start taking shots at him in my dynasty leagues.
This is my favorite fit that we've talked about so far. The question for me, does he make it to 48? I don't know. But Marcus, I mean, we did this exercise last year, right? We always tend to push these quarterbacks up the draft board. We had several quarterbacks projected to go in the first round. Malik Willis at one point was talked about as a potential top 3 pick, and he fell into the third round. Like there's a very wide range of potential outcomes here, but if he falls to Detroit at 48, I really like that. I think at that point,
It's worth it.
like, but not a ton of risk, but the potential reward could be significant, especially with the offense they've built.
And if he doesn't turn out to be a starting quarterback, whatever, it's a second round pick. Even if he ends up becoming like a good backup, like it's fine. Like it's obviously it's not ideal, but it's not the worst case scenario either. And this doesn't, if you spend pick 48 and your season just goes haywire and you end up 4 and 13, which is not going to happen, it doesn't put you out of the quarterback market next year either. So I think that's why it makes so much sense for Detroit. Okay, let's do some projecting of Hendon Hooker's dynasty value next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We've got the college basketball tournament last night. What some awesome games. And there's no better place to get in on the action than America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you can wager on anything and everything from the money lines, the point spreads, to which teams will actually be cutting down the net at the end of this tournament. All in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 back when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel. All right, Kate, let's talk about Hendon Hooker's dynasty value. He's pretty clearly being ranked behind the top 4 quarterbacks: Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis. Just overall, you in or out on his dynasty value?
As of right now, I'm out. And like you alluded, Marcus, I do think probably the one place that might buy me back in is the Detroit Lions. And that's because of, again, the opportunities, because of the playmakers that surround him. Like, I think what we've seen out of him from Tennessee, like he's been a really nice passer, really low turnover rate. He's got, the mobility to, when healthy, use his legs as a part of that game. I feel like he could offer a team like the Lions, who have built, in terms of their run game, offensive line, and receiving core, like they're just really well balanced. And I do think that Hooker actually brings a lot of balance in terms of his ability as a passer, and the way that he complements that with the run.
I'm more in wait and see mode. We know that fit matters so much for quarterbacks, and we know that draft capital matters, right? Look no further than last year's quarterback class. At this time last year, where we were talking about, hey, is Malik Willis QB1? Is it Sam Howell? Is it Matt Corral? Howell went in the 5th round. Matt Corral went in the end of the 3rd round. Malik Willis went in the top of the 3rd round. It just instantly tanked all of their dynasty value. So if Hendon Hooker ends up being a top 25 pick, I'll be interested. If he ends up going late 3rd round or 4th round, I'm going to be out on a 25-year-old backup that a team doesn't really view as a potential franchise quarterback. So I think the play here is just to wait and see.
Yeah, I think the one thing that probably everybody can agree on is those question marks do, build a definitive tier break between those top 4 quarterbacks. However, you want to rank the top 3. We know Will Levis is in that conversation, but after Will Levis, the drop off, down to Hendon Hooker, Max Duggan, like that's a big tier break here. And but I mean, there's some upside there. So wait and see. I think he's going to be a guy that we're going to have to revisit after the draft and really dive into what that offense looks like, who is there to help him develop as an NFL quarterback. Does he have the luxury of sitting behind a veteran quarterback while, the rest of it comes together? Yeah, I think that's going to be key for him. But right now, just gut reaction, too many red flags for me to be in.
Do you know what's a bigger red flag, though? Will Levis putting mayonnaise in his coffee. Did you hear this?
Oh, black coffee is the only way to do this.
Thank you. Wow. That's best take you've ever had of this podcast. So there you go. way to close out the show strong. I love it. Yeah. That is it.
Strong like my coffee.
That is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Scouting Show with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft, salary cap management, and more. Join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Go check out our show on YouTube. We post shows every single day. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. Go enjoy your weekend. We'll see you guys right back here on Monday.